I'm Ned Rust, and I'm with Little Brown and Company, and I have the great privilege of being here on premiercollectibles.com /James Patterson with author and storyteller James Patterson. He'll be on camera in just a minute. He has written a book many, myself included, are calling his best yet. James Patterson by James Patterson. It's a rip-roaring, affecting, wisdom-filled, page-turning delight. And you can get signed copies from this live signing again at premiercollectibles.com /James Patterson. And you can probably see it right there on your Facebook page. Anyhow, let's get me off the camera and James onto it. And I'll be asking some questions throughout.
All right. How can I live up to that? I can't. I'm here. So we're going to, Ned's going to ask some questions that you all have asked out there in the world. Where'd my glasses go? Here they are. Perfect. All right. Nice to see everybody. I mean, oh, wait a minute. I'm just seeing myself. Oh, there I am. Excellent. Okay. This is what I do when I get up in the morning. I get out of bed and I walk in, I look in the mirror and go, oh, you again. So anyway, nice to see you. What kind of questions do we have coming in? People want to hear about.
We got one from Tristan in Warwick.
In Warwick,
in the United Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
He wants to know, how do you avoid crossover of themes and characters in books?
How do I avoid crossovers and themes in books? Good question. I don't. Sometimes I mess up. I did a book with and the Middle Ages, a gesture, and I had Alex Cross in there. So sometimes I just screw up. Honestly, it isn't a big problem. I may look like I would be that confused, but I don't have an issue with that.
All right.
The publisher would catch it anyway. They'd say, wait a minute.
We got trackers.
Alex Cross is not part of the Women's Murder Club.
Paramount used to care about that too. Michael from Medford, Oregon. This will actually be his first James Patterson book. What do you recommend he reads after James Patterson by James Patterson?
Well, the first Alex Cross, Along Came a Spider. If you want to start on the Alex Cross stuff, First to Die. If you want a Black Book, is I think a really good, one of my favorites anyway. And one of the interesting things about writing the autobiography, which I wrote during COVID, here it is, which you can order now today, even while I'm talking, you can order, I think. And but when I was doing it, it really got me concentrating on the language and really focusing on everything. And I think what's coming up, the new Alex Cross, a couple books I'm doing with Mike Lupica next year, I think are the best books that I've done, which is kind of fun. I might be just deluding myself, but that's my take on it. More questions? Can you all hear Ned okay?
The mic's here. You guys.
Oh, the mic is here. Yeah, there it is. Hi, Mike. Yeah.
You put it in the chat.
A Jabra mic. Okay.
If we're having any tech difficulties, just put it out on the page.
Okay, we're good.
All right. Charles from Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Charles from Tucson.
What's the strangest discovery made while researching for a book?
That's a good question that I can't answer. Here's what I say about research, though. If it's a scene in Hawaii, I will go and do the research myself. If it's a crack house in the Bronx, I might have somebody else go do that one. So, the research, I don't remember I'm sure there have been some strange things. Sometimes when you're researching murders, it gets a little weird, to put it mildly, bizarre. There's some strange murders that have taken place in this world.
And nothing against the Bronx. You spent some time in the Bronx.
I love the Bronx. Absolutely. I went to undergraduate school in the Bronx.
All right.
The Bronx, no thonks. You know who said that?
Groucho? I don't know.
No, not Groucho. Poet, famous poet. Go ahead. What's next, Ned?
All right. Onwards.
While he's working, just some stuff on this. Kevin's coming next. Stay tuned for Kevin. In the meantime, though, you can. What's really blown my mind about this book so far is so many people, and Ned alluded to it a little bit, who have said this is your best book. better than the Alice Crosses, better than a Woman's Murder Club, and just some of the quotes. Admiral McRaven, Bill McRaven, who wrote Make Your Bed, which just keeps selling and selling and selling. He said it's the most entertaining book I've read in the past 50 years, which is so. I mean, it blows your mind that somebody would have that response to your autobiography. But I also wonder, like, what did he read 50 years ago? It's kind of interesting. I'm just curious. Bob Woodward, who's a wonderful writer, he said, I felt I was interviewing James Patterson under the highest permissible dose of sodium pentothal, the truth serum. And he spilled the whole story of his truly astonishing life and experiences, which is also, I mean, the idea that Bob Woodward read the book and then decided to say something is really great. And I don't know him from a hole in the wall. Hillary Clinton, I do know very well, and she gave us a nice quote too. At any rate, what's the next question?
That was Kevin.
Kevin
from Toledo.
Kevin from Toledo. Yeah.
Out of all the books you have written throughout your career, what is your favorite book or book series, and why?
Well, the book series, I mean, I'm going to have to go with the Alex Cross series, just because I've been with Alex a long time. I feel a connection to Alex in that we're both very family oriented. We both struggle with, the how do you balance family and work? Obviously, my work is just my obsessiveness with writing books, and Alex is a little more serious because he's chasing after murderers. So the Alex Cross as a series. In terms of the favorite book, I mentioned the Black Book earlier. I have two books coming next year with Mike Lupica, which I really love. One is House of Wolves, which has to do with the family in San Francisco. It's a little like Succession, only I think a lot livelier, or maybe a little like Yellowstone. And I like that a lot. I think that really turned out well. So you have to wait till next year for that one, though.
Great. We got Natasha from Gallatin, Tennessee.
Okay.
I loved your masterclass. When writing a novel, especially your first one, should you keep writing until it's finished, or can you write short stories during that time too?
You can do whatever you want to. You're an adult. You're a writer. Be proud of it. No, it's absolutely fine. I mean, look, everybody needs to figure out what's going to work for them. I in the master class, I say I don't give anybody advice. I'm just telling you what I do. You may find some of it useful, and you might not. The only thing I always say is that the stuff that you nod to, don't pay much attention to, because you already do that. The stuff that you shake your head to, that's the stuff you ought to think about, because if you're going to grow, it's going to be because of things that you're not already doing. But yeah, write short story, whatever. I mean, I think it's good to focus, but if that's not working for you, and one of the tricks, especially if it's a novel, if you're not getting a chapter, don't go crazy there. Go to the next chapter. Just put TBD, and when you do your rewrite, and you must rewrite and rewrite, and you do your next rewrite, you pick up that chapter somewhere along the line. The worst thing in the world is you start obsessing because you can't get a chapter right, and then you start freezing up, and so that's once again, I'm not going to, no advice, but that's a thought for you to think about. Thought to think about. There's some writing for you. Okay.
All right. Sally from Roebling, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
What would you consider to be the hardest moment of your career?
Well, I mean, the hardest time of my life, and it's covered. There are two, I think, real interesting love stories in James Patterson by James Patterson, and one of them is I was with a woman for 7 years, and during the last 2.5 years, she was dying of a brain tumor. I was in my early 30s. She was 3 years older than me, and we lived together for the 7 years. And that was a really hard period. When I was younger, I remember when my grandfather died. I wanted to cry and I couldn't cry. I just couldn't cry for years and years and years. When Jane got sick, I cried every day, and then for a year afterward. So that was a very tough time. And after she died, I couldn't write. So I went for, I don't know how long, a year, 18 months, whatever. And I didn't write anything. I tried to write one thing. It was so bad, I threw it away. I literally threw it away. I'd written a whole novel. I don't even remember what was in it at this stage. And then the other love of my life is Sue, who I'm married to now. And one of the things I mentioned in the book is, and this is true, every night Sue and I go to sleep holding hands. So that's very special, I think. And one of the lines, that I mentioned in terms of Sue is if Sue ever leaves me, I'm going with her. So there's two nice love stories in the book, I think. Yeah.
Thanks. All right, Arlene from Sparks, Nevada. Will you ever do a movie with your son or have him be a part of one of your movies?
Speaking of Nevada, I mentioned House of Wolves. I have some hats from the University of Nevada. They have this great wolf thing on their logo. It's wonderful. So I've been wearing the University of Nevada hat around lately, and so does Lupica, my co-writer on House of Wolves. In terms of Jack and I don't know. Maybe someday. We did a book together at one point. Jack published a book, which was fun. I don't know. He's a better writer than me, so I don't know if he'd want to be involved co-writing with me or doing a movie. But we'll see what happens over time. That'd be fun. He's a good actor. Doesn't I don't think he has an interest in acting, but he's pretty good.
And he's got the looks for.
He's got the looks. Yeah, I don't know. He got them from Sue, obviously.
All right, Cindy from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You put so much detail into all of your characters. How do you keep everything straight when you have so many series and books published?
That came up with an earlier question. I've never had a problem with that. My memory is Swiss cheese, but for some reason I kind of remember everything about the books, except for, what happened, all the plot. But I remember the basics about the characters, certainly. So that's never been an issue with me. And the nonfiction, one of the interesting nonfictions this year it's a book called Diana, William and Harry. And there's been probably too many books written about Diana, but this is really about Diana as a mom, as a mother, and the boys, and how the whole thing with the crown has affected them, and then how Diana's death affected the boys. So that's I think that's an interesting story, and I wouldn't have written it just to write a book about Diana. I think there've been too many of those written.
Here's one from Patty in Okawville, Illinois. I think you talked about this on TV on Good Morning America and on Kelly and Ryan this morning. How long do you plan on writing and releasing books?
Yeah, Illinois. My wife is from Rockford, so a shout out. I'm not sure that my geography on Illinois is a little, not so good. So I'm not sure if you're near Rockford. I when I signed up the autobiography, James Patterson by James Patterson, right here, which you can order immediately, the signed edition. I'm going to sign some right in front of you. This is going to be so exciting. But I signed a 3-book deal. So one now, one when I'm 90, and one when I'm 110. And I made them sign me. I made them do it. Pay me up front. So I'm going to sign one now. I'm going to sign one to you. Here we go.
There you go, Patty.
Wow, Patty. Woo! That's one of my best signatures too. That's a really good one.
He did well.
I think so. I have a bunch of signed books. I get a kick out of it. I think it's a great thing, and I know a lot of you are real collectors. And I probably have about 50 signed editions, not of my books. I don't sign them for myself, but that was fun, Patty. So we'll do it again for somebody.
All right, we got Tanya from Reynoldsburg, Ohio.
Okay.
What 3-pointers?
I'm going to Ohio on my tour.
It's Monday.
Tour of a lifetime, we call it. And I'm going to Cleveland, and I'm going to Columbus. So that'll be fun. So maybe I think those are sold out. I'm not sure. I lose track of this stuff. But so what's the question?
From Reynoldsburg, what 3-pointers would you give to aspiring writers?
3 pointers. Okay. Here we go. Coca-Cola, and I get a lot of money for that, showing that bottle on this thing. And free Coca-Colas. I don't really. I'm making up stuff. Okay, you ready? You got your pencil ready? Outline, outline, outline. It's that simple. You will save so much time, so much heartache. Your book will be better, or your essay, or whatever your short story. It's so much easier to look at that outline and make changes. You have a 40. My outlines on the books tend to be well, 50 to 80 pages, but it's so much easier to fix it at that stage or to add to it. Suddenly you go, oh, I love this character. In fact, I was just doing it this morning after I did the two T. I did Good Morning America, and what else did I do?
Ryan and Kelly.
Ryan and Kelly, yeah. And Kelly and Ryan. Let's get them in the right order here.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then I was back at the hotel and I was outlining another story, and I love doing it. And but I'm adding layers every time I do sometimes I'll do the outline 4 or 5 different times, believe it or not.
All right, we got Richard from up the Hudson at Wappingers Falls.
Oh, Wappingers Falls. Damn. Yeah. Now you're into my territory. I lived in Newburgh, grew up in Newburgh. That's in the book big time. My father grew up in the Newburgh poorhouse, the Pogie. His mother was a charwoman there. She cleaned the bathrooms and the kitchens, and they got a room in the basement, which doesn't really. I mean, I don't pat myself in the back for that, but it's just interesting. And when my father, he was going off to war, and he got this phone call. This is World War II, and this guy was on the line. Said his name was George Hazelton, and he lived in Port Jervis, which, if you're in Wappingers, you know that's about 25 miles from Newburgh. And this George Hazelton said, "You just bear with me for a couple of minutes." And he said that the night before he had dinner with his parents, and then afterward they took him downstairs, and they said, "George, we love you so very much, and you're going off to this terrible war now, and we have to tell you that we're not your natural parents, and we adopted you." And then over the telephone, George Hazelton told my father, he said, "I'm your brother." So that's how my father found out about that he had a brother. And that's the kind of story. It's not the traditional kind of boring biography that so many people write. I don't think it is anyway, but it's just story after story after story. And that's and then the next little chapter has to do when my uncle and my father came back from World War II, they became best friends. And at one point, my uncle found their father, who had a terrible reputation. He was sort of had a reputation for being kind of a drunk and whatever. And he called my father up again. He said, "Look, I found our dad. He's tending bar in Poughkeepsie, and I want to go see him. Let's go." And my father said, "I don't want to see the bastard." Excuse me. And so my uncle went up by himself, and my uncle is kind of a shy guy. Went into this bar, and he's not a drinker, so he ordered a Coca-Cola, and you can see my connection to Coca-Cola. And I get more money for throwing it into that story. And my uncle was so turned off by this man, his father, who he, to his knowledge, had never met, and he left the bar without ever telling him that he was his son. And that's what the book is full of, just story after story like that. My days in Newburgh, I worked in a mental hospital after Newburgh, McLean Hospital in Baldwin. I worked my way through college there, and James Taylor, the singer, was a patient. And at that point, he was not famous. And he used to play in the coffee shop 2 or 3 times a week. But he had already written Fire and Rain and Sweet Baby James. And you'd sit in the coffee shop listening to him. The guy was great. Obviously, he just wasn't famous yet. And Robert Lowell, the poet, was there as well. So I have stories about that, and a couple about the hospital, and one patient who I got very close to, a suicidal guy who had gone to Brandeis. And at one point, I wound up in a canoe with him. His ward had this sort of summer outing thing, and they went for a couple of days into the woods. And Marty said to me in a canoe, he said, "James, don't you find it a little strange that I'm suicidal and they let me come out in this canoe with you on the lake?" And it was a little scary. And he saw the look in my eyes, and he said, "Oh," he said, "I would never do that to you. I would never do that to you. Commit suicide." Yeah, moving along.
Richard's from Wappinger's question has to do a bit to do with that time. He said Jim has said in the past that he decided he wanted to become an author after reading a great deal during the summer between his junior and senior year in college. I would be interested in some of the authors or titles that motivated his decision.
Yeah, that's actually a thing in the book, and it was actually earlier than junior and senior year. And in particular, I was a literary snob back in those days, but books like The Tin Drum, Gunter Grass, really, that I love that. It's just it's another way of looking at World War II, and the Nazis and whatever. Unbelievable. Mr. Bridge and Mrs. Bridge, Mrs. Bridge in particular, two different novels, and a little of my style came from that. That's an Evan Connell book. 100 Years of Solitude, which is probably my favorite novel. And then eventually, a little later, probably when I was in graduate, I went to Vanderbilt for graduate school. And while I was down there, I read The Exorcist and The Day of the Jackal. And I really liked those. And I thought, maybe I could write that kind of a book, a thriller, a page turner. So yeah, that got me started. But when I was I was reading in freshman, sophomore, junior year in college. It was pretty much all serious stuff.
We have Antonio, and pardon my Italian here,
Mm.
Cava de Turini in Italy.
Mhm.
Hi, James. I'm Antonio from Italy. Have you ever been to Italy?
I have been to Italy several times. I love Italy. I love Rome. I've been to Florence and Venice several times. Interestingly enough, I really like Venice. I even like Venice a little better than Florence, which almost nobody, well, probably people in Venice like it better than Florence too. But I love the art there. To me is just more secular, which I enjoy. In Florence, I get tired of so many pictures of Jesus with the arrow in through his heart. I don't know. I'm being flipped there. But they're both wonderful cities, and I love Rome. I love Paris and Rome, two of my favorite cities in the world. And you kind of wish that there are cities in America. Well, obviously, we're not going to have cities that are that old, but just I love the architecture. I love people watching. I love to sit in outside in the terrace in Rome and just watch the people. Wonderful. Watch the little cars crashing into each other. It's great fun.
He'd like to know also, how much time do you spend on writing every day?
I write 7 days a week. I've said it before, but I don't work for a living. I play for a living, and I'll get up 5:30 in the morning, do a little bit of work, hang out with my wife for a bit, and I'll usually get done. It depends on the day, 6, 7 o'clock at night. So I don't know how many hours that is, but it is 7 days a week.
Great.
It's a disease. I
Here's
don't want to be cured, though.
Here's a blast from the past. Sarah from Gilbert, Arizona. Sundays at Tiffany's was one of my favorites. What was your inspiration behind that story?
Tiffany said that they would give me a diamond ring half price. No, that's not true. But they did do that. That's so weird. I let them know that I was doing this book, and they said, go to our stores and just find something wonderful, and we'll give it to you for half price. So they only make like then 25% on that at half or whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I just, I guess a little bit of it was Breakfast at Tiffany's and always loving that and wanting to write a sort of a nice fantasy a love story. I don't know if you've read Suzanne's Diary for Nicholas. That's another kind of love story that has, I think, a really good story. I don't write romances. I mean that genre. I don't quite know how to write those, but love stories. I'm somewhat romantic, as I mentioned earlier. The idea that I've had two really wonderful love affairs in my life, and the thing about the relationship with Jane is it made me so positive. I mean, some people will go through and it'll be a bad relationship and they get down on relationships, which I understand, but that just brought me up on relationships. The notion of, and I think it's important if you can pull it off, that that you can love somebody, so much that you would never hurt them because you love them so much, you care about them, you treasure the relationship, and also the notion that you're lovable, that somebody can love you that way, which whatever, if you can get that. I mean, once again, this isn't advice at all, but the notion of when you're looking for people, it's not, I don't think it's a physical, I mean, that's a little piece of it, and people I think pay too much attention to that, but the notion of somebody that that you can love somebody that deeply and that you're lovable, I think that's whatever, optimum.
Here's a question from John in Belpre, Ohio. As you know, and as you know better than anybody, Jim, you get several copies of your book to go. You edit, and it gets tighter and tighter as we go along. But do you read a final copy of your own book?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I absolutely right through to the copy editing and yes, because I want to make sure because I have an editor who likes to mess around. She likes to sort of occasionally rewrite a sentence and stuff. And with the James Patterson by James Patterson, I absolutely forbid them to change anything, one word without my permission. And they so that's why it's totally illiterate. But it's good stories, just illiterate writing. No, I think it's very colloquial writing. It's the way we tell stories to one another. And if you wrote down your favorite story, one that works, you absolutely know it because people always love it and they say, "Oh, that's a great story." And it usually somewhere in there you say, "I don't know if forgive me if I told you the story already." But if you wrote it down, that's kind of what I do. It's just colloquial, like the story I told about my dad and my uncle George. It's the way you tell them, and that's kind of what the book is, just full of story after story that way. And it ranges from growing up, this time in the mental hospital, my time in advertising. Uh, my joke about advertising is I've been clean for 30 years now. Uh, my famous advertising line, I didn't write the jingle, but I'm a Toys R Us kid. I wrote that line. I wrote a lot of Kodak stuff. I wrote a lot of Burger King ads. I don't know if you remember the Battle of the Burgers, which when we did it was it was crazy. It was on the national news every night for like weeks. The Battle of the Burgers. Burger King was taking on McDonald's. McDonald's sued us, which was hilarious. I don't know why,
Sharon from Maple Valley, Washington.
Yeah.
How was the process in writing your memoir?
Sharon? Oh, that's my favorite name. I can't really tell you why, but it is. Sharon, I'm gonna sign one here.
She wants to know how the
This
process.
Is Sharon's how the process of the writing goes.
Of the memoir.
What I do is I'll turn my name into one word, J. Patterson. Makes it a lot easier to do. And then and then here's Sharon's book right here. And you too can get one like this. It won't have your name in it, but it will have my signature. Ron Howard writes, "This book was damn near addictive." I tell you what's funny now. We just got a thing from the networks. It's on the cover, damn near addictive. And they said, we don't want damn on the, like, I mean, seriously, folks? I'm sorry, what century is this? At any rate, so Ron Howard and Patricia Cornwell wrote one of the greatest storytellers of all time. Oh my God. Patterson has led an amazing life. Well, that's cool. That's good that she thinks that. Anyway, so you can get this right now, signed and all that jazz. I don't know if authors do this, but I figure from here we might as well talk about. Obviously we want you to read the book. I do. They want you to buy it with the signature, which is kind of cool. And as I said, I do have my collection of other people's signed books, which is especially, and it's so weird. Our son just he graduated in 2020, but he just did his graduation with the class of 2022, and during COVID, I never really had watched Law and Order SU, but I got into that special SVU,
yeah.
And I got into it, and I didn't fall in love with her, but I love the acting of Mariska Hargitay, and so I'm going through this massive crowd at the college, and who's there? Mariska Hargitay. And I ran up to her and I said, I never do this. I never ever do this. I'm James Patterson. I write up, and she not, and her husband actually had done 2 of the audiobooks. He's huge, big man. And I said, I just had to because you're such an incredible actress. She's so good, actor. And she got a kick out of it. And I was out of her hair very quickly. It was 30 seconds, not painful. But she loved the fact that I recognized her work. Was there a question there that I avoided?
She just about the book, the memoir, James Patterson by James Patterson. How was the process in writing this one different than the previous?
It was during COVID. I was, I think like a lot of us, I was examining my life a little bit. I started writing down some of the stories. And actually, Ned here, he was a big stimulus. He said, because he's heard a lot of the stories because I go on the road and we've been in bars together. And no, I'm kidding. We have been in bars together. But and he said, you should write, but do a memoir that just does the stories and leave out all the boring stuff that people skip. So I did. I left out all the boring things, and just told the stories. And so that's why. In the process, I focus a lot more on the writing. I think the writing is very tight. Sentences are tight, but it's still the colloquial storytelling that I do. But it helped me, and I do think everything I've done since writing the autobiography, which I finished, I don't know, 9 months or so ago. It takes a while for the books to get out there. But I think everything I've done since then, they've profited from the work I did on the autobiography. And I do. It is amazing to me. I think I might have said this earlier, but if you came in late, I have never had so many people. They say this is your best book, better than Alice Cross, better than A Woman's Murder Club, uh, um, and that's a very rewarding, very rewarding.
Speaking of rewarding, Courtney from Patchogue wants to know what it was like working with President Clinton.
Oh my God, horror show. No, it was great. It was wonderful. We've become really nice friends. I just talked to him a couple days ago. We actually, in the summers, we're in Westchester, New York, and he and Hillary are about, oh, 10 minutes away. And we'll go out to dinner with them. So the first time we went out to dinner, this is interesting about perceptions and reality of different. And I've spent time with President Clinton. I've spent time with both of the Bushes. I spent time with President Trump, et cetera. And in all cases, they're not who people think they are, in my opinion. I'll just give you an example with the Clintons. So Sue and I, my wife, we went out. And the first time we were out to dinner with them, we were there about 3 hours, and nobody bothered us. A little restaurant near both of our homes, and during the meal, 3 or 4 times during the meal, um, President Clinton and Hillary were holding hands under the table, and people don't think of them that way. I don't. Most people don't. But it's interesting. It's just George Bush 43. He's very humorous. He's a very funny individual, and Clinton will talk about that. I mean, here's two different parties, but after they were out of office, they both worked together, trying to deal with AIDS in Africa, and they became very good friends. And George Bush cracks Clinton up. He just has to walk into the room and say something, and Clinton will be laughing, which is, it's very cool. And you wish that Congress, they could get out there and get together and have meals together and laugh at each other's jokes, and then get something done. You know, get it done. You just can't go out to Washington and do nothing. That's not why we sent them there. I don't think. Some people, that's exactly why they sent them there. Shut down the government. So where was I? Did I answer the
You
question?
answered the question. That's
Excellent.
perfect.
Okay. I'm going to sign another one. This is I love signing these things. Oh, I signed that one already.
And just a reminder to everybody, you can get your signed copy from this live signing at premiercollectible.com.
That's right.
/James
There it is.
Patterson.
Now, here's my question for you, though. And here's a question for the publisher. Who is this on the cover of my book? I'm confused. It's so weird. Actually, that's me at, I think, 450. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to sign another. Who am I signing this one for?
You can do Sean and Melissa.
Sean and Melissa.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
Who asked? They're from Hubbard,
This is
Ohio.
so exciting. I'm doing some squiggles on this one too.
And you may have answered this with Alex Cross, but who's your favorite character to write, and why would you consider them your favorite? Maybe we could make that question about books that are upcoming. If you have any favorite new characters.
Yeah, we talked about Alice Cross. I mentioned before that next year with Mike Lupica, who's become a nice friend, we have the House of Wolves, and then there's another one, which I'm not going to give you the full title. I'm going to leave out one word: Jane Blank Smith, and whatever. We'll see what that title. I'm not going to get into what the title is on this. That is a really cool, and that's going to be a 4-book series, I think. And we have the first one done, and we're halfway through the second one, and that is maybe I like that character maybe even better than Alex. Jane Blank Smith. The blank will tell you about, and we'll see what happens. That'll be an ongoing discussion with the publisher, and I'm right here in there. They may come rushing in here and change the title on me even as we're talking. Yeah.
All right. I think we're right up at the time.
Oh, we're there. I'm going to sign one more for somebody else who didn't send a question in. And even though you didn't, I'm still going to sign one for everyone out there. This is a special one. And this one, what am I going to do? I'm going to do the squiggles. I'm going to put a dot over the I that isn't even in here. And then I'm going to put another line over that. That's so cool. This is like a piece of art. This is so good. Okay.
All right. And then just for the company, I have one one question I want to squeeze in. This book, obviously, you said it went to print a while ago. Have any stories come up since that you wish you'd gotten in there? And are you, in fact, thinking about doing another?
Yeah, I mean, I continue to live even beyond the. I'll give you a sense of what fame is like. So Sue was out of town for a couple of days. She went to the University of Wisconsin and she had a meeting out there. And so I was in Florida near her house in a little Italian restaurant that we like to go to. So I called up and I said, "Do you have room?" They said, "We'll fit you in." So I showed up at the restaurant and I had to stand at the bar and I had to drink a little wine while I was at the bar waiting. And then the waiter came and had my little glass of wine. And I'm walking down the aisle and this woman pops up, takes off her mask, and she goes, "I know you. You sold us our life insurance." And I'm like, it really wasn't me. She said, "Well, you're the spitting image of them, you know?" So I sit down and during my appetizer, somebody behind us goes, behind me, me and my best friend, me, "You're from Boston, right?" And I turn around and he goes, "You're Tom Clancy." And I go, "No, he died about 9 years ago, but I don't think I look like him, but who knows?" Although weirdly, I mentioned my son's graduation. So Jack went to Brown up in Providence, and I get up early. So I get up, it's like 6 a.m. and the night before they had this big dance, they had all these tables. And between like 2 a.m. and 6 o'clock, they've taken down all the tables and they're putting up chairs and whatever. And there's a cop there. And I said, "I got just one question for you." I said, "Who won the Celtics Heat game the night before?" And he said, "Oh, tragically, the Heat." I said, "Oh." And then he looks at me, he goes, "You're Tom Clancy." So it must be something in the drinking water. And that's what fame is like. So if you like Tom Clancy, just read this book, Tom Clancy by James Patterson. And if you like James Patterson. If you like Stephen King by James Patterson. There's a lot of humor in there, I think. Hopefully it's humorous, we'll see. And good stories and love stories and a little bit of tragedy, but it's not one of these weepers. Like some actresses out there, like, "Oh, my terrible life. I only make $1 million. I don't know, whatever." And God bless her, and I'm sure her life is unhappy, and I'm sorry for that. But bad things happen. But I've tried to keep. I don't do a lot of weeping in there. So hopefully you'll like it. If you like it, pass it on. Tell your friends about it. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself.
And if you or your friends want a signed copy, again, premiercollectibles.com/James Patterson.
And the other thing is, I mean, you can get signed copies for your friends.
Yep.
How about that? Or for birthdays.
And then there'll be
Father's Day coming up, big time. Next Christmas. Can't do that Christmas shopping too early. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.